On a great team, everyone feels like they belong and that they are a part of something vastly greater than themselves. Hey leader, David Burkus here, organizational psychologist and author of 5 best-selling books on helping leaders and teams do their best work ever. A sense of belonging on a team is one of the key differences between a team that survives and a team that truly thrives. Belonging is that sense of acceptance and inclusion that employees or team members feel as they work toward being part of the team. A sense of belonging is that feeling of acceptance and inclusion that teammates feel whenever they work with the team. Whenever they're around the team, they feel like this is a place where I belong. This is the team that I am a part of, that I identify with. And you, as a leader, encourage that sense of belonging by the habits and norms and behaviors that you exhibit that get mimicked by everyone else in the organization. How well you open up communication, how well you create a sense of safety, all of that determines how well people will feel like they belong on that team. And obviously creating this sense of belonging, this community, is important because a strong sense of belonging correlates with engagement and productivity, performance, job satisfaction. Otherwise, why would I be making an episode about this sense of belonging? So in this episode, we're gonna talk about 5 ways you can build a sense of belonging on your team. 5 behaviors that you exhibit that, as people mimic, will create a community on the team that everybody feels like they're a part of. Let's get started. So the first way to create a sense of belonging on a team is to share information openly. I mean, you can't manage a secret anyway, but there are often times where you feel like there's information, there's decisions, there's things you have access to as a leader that, the team doesn't need to know. And that may be true. And certainly if it's something that's gonna cause anxiety or cause a distraction, we're not talking about sharing that. But there's a lot of information that comes across your desk or your email inbox that, if you shared it out more openly, would help people feel included, would help people feel like they belong. You know, if you're running an organization, if this is a small business or a startup, I'm a huge fan of just pure open book management. Share the financials, share, here's where the revenue comes in, here's where the expenses go out. Share all of that information openly. If you're part of a larger organization, then share what you can. Maybe it's your team's budget. Share what you know about decisions that are being made and how they affect that. Even better, if you can share things that most managers on most teams don't share. You know, it amazes me how often people perk up, people feel more included, more engaged when leaders say things like, "What I'm about to share stays here. It needs to stay within just our team." Right? Because why else would you be sharing it? I'm part of that team and I'm getting privileged information. Now, as you go and as you model this behavior, hopefully people will share their own privileged information. People will be sharing information about what they're working on, how they're feeling, how they're making decisions more widely. The more people share on your team, the more they increase that sense of belonging across the entire team. But model the way first, share information openly. The second behavior you model, the second action that helps create a sense of belonging, is to share credit widely. You know, there's this sort of tendency in human nature, right, to take credit for ourselves and to push blame on other people. And you may have heard the quote about, to great leaders, success has many parents and failure is an orphan, right? Or even better, great leaders take that failure on themselves, but let the team experience success. That's kind of what we're talking about here. When decisions are made, when wins happen, are you sharing that credit out widely? Well, this is especially important as you work up in a large organization. It's going to be tempting for your boss or your boss's boss to attribute the success of your team to you and your leadership. But are you sharing that credit widely? More importantly, when your team is watching, are you sharing that credit widely? When you make a decision that turns out to be the right thing, are you sharing credit back to the team that helped find that research for you, helped you think through options? Or are you talking about your brilliant decision making? I think you can guess which one is the right answer. And are you teaching people to share credit widely? When people share their wins, and I'm a big fan of teams sharing their wins, no matter how large or small, on a regular basis, when people are sharing those wins, are you teaching them to also share who enabled those wins? Are you teaching them to share how my own personal win came because I had a resource that someone else on the team provided, or because I had information that was shared openly from someone else? It's not enough to just share individual wins. We want to teach people to share credit widely as well, because that increases that sense of belonging and increases this idea that we are all in this together, and our wins are all of our wins. Our failures, by the way, are not orphans. They're all of our failures too. That helps create that sense of psychological safety where people feel safe to admit failures and then learn mistakes. And those lessons, yeah, they also belong to all of us. The third action to create a sense of belonging is to create rituals, regular behaviors, whether they be acted out rituals. Some organizations actually do use chants and mantras and what have you, or they might even just be little rituals like the icebreaker game you play at the beginning of every meeting, or the acronyms that your team develops, even just the inside jokes that come from sharing an experience on a team. All of those things are a form of ritual, an action that has a sense of meaning because it's shared. I mean, let's just use a simple one like acronyms. When you first went to work for whatever organization you work for now, or started whatever organization you started now, right, you had to learn the language of the company or the industry. You had to learn what certain acronyms meant. I once worked for an organization that had 3 different meanings of the 2-letter acronym AC, and none of them were air conditioning, by the way. And I just had to figure out, based on the context of the sentence, which acronym was being used. However, when I figured it out, yeah, I felt like I belonged. I felt like I understood it better. The amazing thing about all of the research on rituals is that's what it's about. If you understand the meaning behind the ritual, then you're part of the group, and that increases that sense of belonging. Now, a word of caution here: if you have strong senses of rituals on your team, you're going to create a strong sense of belonging through an insider effect. So make sure that you're including everybody on the ritual, including people who might be adjacent to the team but still part of its success, whether that's other teams or vendors or freelancers or what have you. Make sure that you're not creating an us versus them, that you're creating an all of us. The 4th action to create a sense of belonging, and this is really specific to you as a leader, but it will flow down eventually, is to ask for advice. Yeah, when you are stuck, when you need to make a decision, ask the team what they would do. There's so much power in leaders saying things like, I don't know. What do you think? I mean, the first is that it admits vulnerability. It shows people what they already knew, but what they might have thought you were pretending not to know, which is that you are not invincible. But more importantly, coming to someone for their advice demonstrates that you value their knowledge, their skills, abilities. You value their perspective. You value them. And so get in the habit of asking for advice on a regular basis before you make a decision. Moreover, get in the habit of, when you make the decision, bringing the action you took, the decision you made, back to people and showing how their advice helped you reach that conclusion. This is counterintuitively especially important when you didn't follow their advice to the whole, when their advice combined with other people's advice is what helped you make the decision. Make sure you're going back, because they're not going to see it on their own. They're going to need you to go back and show them, hey, here's how I utilized your advice. Thank you so much for it. I so value your contribution to this team. In other words, you belong. And the 5th and final way to create a sense of belonging on a team, this is perhaps incredibly important to do when you're asking for advice, but even more important as a behavior you'll model to the rest of the team, is to model active listening. Make sure you're actually tuned in when people are giving you that advice, or anytime they're speaking. Make sure you're not staring at your phone or your email inbox or off in the distance. If you're on a virtual team or a virtual meeting, this is especially hard, because you're going to have to get used to staring at the camera lens on your webcam instead of down in the corner where they are, because it might have you look distracted. But if you are making that eye contact or camera lens contact, if you are making those nonverbals, those ums and ahs, those nods, those yay, give me more, etc., if you're asking intelligent follow-up questions that not only signal you're listening, but encourage them to expound more, all of those things are going to signal that you're in it. And just like when you asked for advice, that you value their contribution, that you value their knowledge, that you value what they have to say, that you respect them because they belong. And as you do that, and as you teach that, and as people start to learn what acceptable behavior is, you get this whole team that is not only taking turns, making sure everyone has a chance to share and to give advice, but is making sure that everyone is demonstrating how well they respect that advice through that sense of active listening. And when you do, you create this virtuous cycle of advice and active listening that helps people feel they belong, but more importantly, helps the team make better decisions, take better actions, and overall have a better sense of performance because they're communicating better as well. Now, I'm not a naive optimist. As you start to do these behaviors, as you start to share information openly and share credit widely, as you create rituals, as you ask for advice, and as you model active listening, you're not going to create a sense of belonging for everyone right away. So you're going to need to kind of keep at it. You're going to mess up. You're going to need to apologize. You're going to need to refocus on it. That's fine. This is a long game process. Just like you didn't feel like you belonged in an organization right when you first joined, but you eventually did, this is going to be an eventual process. The difference is if you're committed to doing these 5 actions and you're committed to teaching your team to model these 5 actions, you're going to help new members or even old members who never really felt like they belonged feel that sense of connection, that sense of community, that sense of belonging much faster. And that's going to make the time between them just being an individual contributor to a team member to someone who really actively engages with the team much faster. And that's going to take them much faster to a place where they can do their best work ever. Oh, and one more thing. You heard me flirt with this term a little bit, psychological safety, how well the team learns from their failures and admits their mistakes, what have you. And if you're gonna create a sense of belonging, you're gonna need to go deeper on that as well. So you're gonna wanna check out this video here on how to create a sense of psychological safety.